The teaching yesterday was about discontent. What is the cause of discontent? Not being satisfied, not being contented. How we are continually looking for some kind of relief of our discontent. The drawback of this relief, which is that it is temporary, that it never lasts, and that it always gives rise to a new discontent and a new desire. And also, finally, the way out of discontent, which is to work on and build contentedness within oneself. So to begin with the origin of discontent, of unhappiness, dissatisfaction, what causes it to be born? We always think that our unhappiness is because of our situation, that because our situation is unacceptable, is not correct, therefore we are discontent, we are unsatisfied with it, and we have to go and search for the way to change our situation. But that's not the case. Just the other day I was thinking about this spring during the lockdown of coronavirus, when everybody was told to stay indoors. All non-essential businesses were shut down. You couldn't go to work, you couldn't go to the gym. All activities were cancelled, no school. People were basically just indoors in their houses. And there was so much suffering in people that was born from this, so much discontent. At the very least was boredom, loneliness. Many people really suffered really genuine distress, despair, and even depression being in this situation of lockdown, simply not being able to go out, not being able to see all the people they normally see, do the things they normally do. So to everyone who is dissatisfied in this situation, it appears that the situation is unacceptable and we suffer and long to get out of it. But at the very same time, at the very same moment, elsewhere in the world, if we go to, let's say, a refugee camp in Greece, the island of Lesbos, Turkey, Syria, any of these places, there in those places, there is no such possibility of this kind of lockdown. People don't even have houses. They don't even have access to basic healthcare, basic enough food to eat. The basic necessities of life are not there. Everybody is cramped together. It's impossible to even think about the same kind of social distancing measures or whatever we have imposed on us in the Western world. So just contrasting these two, you see that the people in the refugee camps would give everything to be in the same situation as the people in lockdown in North America or Europe. To them this looks like a paradise. And yet, for the people who are in this paradise, it is unacceptable, dissatisfactory. It's like a prison, and they crave something else. One has extreme physical deprivation of all kinds, so they crave a good situation, and yet those that are in that good situation still suffer mental deprivation and crave something else. As soon as there is craving for something other than your current situation, what you have, this is already unhappiness and discomfort, dissatisfaction in itself. And for most of us, the only solution, the only way that we know of resolving the unhappiness and the discomfort is going and getting the thing we want, of changing our situation. This is the temporary relief of discontent that happens when get a change or an improvement. But the very significant drawback or problem with this, depending on this kind of temporary relief, is that it is temporary. So to give an example, let's say that you have a very stressful job and 3 children, never getting a moment to yourself. Now if somebody offers you that you can stay in a quiet, comfortable room all on your own for as long as you want, it sounds like heaven. And the only catch to this is that you're not allowed to bring any books or movies or any distractions with you. There's nothing to do in the room on your own. And at first, being in the room is very pleasant. It's such a relief from the stress, from all the things that you have to think about. You're comfortable, you have enough food, you have enough to drink, like you're physically comfortable. But pretty soon, with nothing to do, you will start to be uncomfortable, and soon you will want to escape. So you have no physical discomfort, no material problem in the world, but just the fact of having nothing to do, which is the very thing you wanted so badly at first, very soon becomes a torture. And the craving for something to do, some kind of entertainment, builds up so much pressure that after a while you're very happy to go back to doing your job, to taking care of your 3 children, to all this that was so stressful and that you were wanting to get away from before. So whatever temporary relief we find in getting the thing that we want never lasts. What is agreeable in the beginning becomes disagreeable through sheer boredom, if through nothing else. So as I said in another video as well, trying to solve our discontent by getting what we want is like drinking salt water, or it's like trying to fill a bottomless bucket. You can drink the whole 7 oceans of salt water and you'll die. You'll kill yourself doing that before you're actually satisfied. So then what is the actual way out of this discontent? What is the way to really resolve it? The true escape from discontent is contentedness. It sounds almost too simple. What do we mean by contentedness? Firstly, in material terms, it literally means to decide to be content with what is enough. And here, of course, it's important to know the definition of what is enough, which is the minimum of comfort and ease that is necessary to be able to think clearly and meditate well. So we need food, lodging, clothes, and medicine. Everybody needs those 4 basic things. So one who decides to be a monk decides to content himself with just those things that are necessary for him to live and to have enough energy to practice, and not to look for anything more. So here it's important to mention that it's not the same as extreme physical self-deprivation, like removing all one's comfort just for the sake of it, or it's not like extreme asceticism where you try to survive on just 3 or 4 mouthfuls of food a day, where you really deprive the body of what it needs to survive and to be strong enough, to be comfortable enough. And it also can vary according to your situation, according to your location, like just the difference between living in Canada in wintertime and living in India. The physical conditions that are necessary just to survive, let alone to have enough energy to practice well, are not the same in these 2 different locations. So one has to exercise a degree of wisdom and common sense in seeing what is necessary, what is enough, and what is just a pure desire, a pure craving. At the same time, even here, it doesn't mean that you're permitted to become irritated, angry, and upset because of some physical discomfort that you have. There can be discomfort in the body without it affecting the mind. Ajahn tells a story about one time when he was meditating on a beach in Thailand in a tent, and he had put his tent too close to the water, so the water was coming up around his legs and he was sitting in the water. But instead of becoming unhappy with this or becoming irritated, he was still just so happy to be inside a tent, not to be bothered with mosquitoes, not to be touched by the sun. So he didn't mind that there was water coming around his legs and around his feet. But that doesn't mean that he's going to deliberately put his tent in the same spot the next time just to have the same problem again. That would be having no common sense. There's another story about a monk who went to stay near a small village for the rainy season, and the people there promised him they would build him a hut. But then, due to several misfortunes that came on the village, all the people were too busy and they were not able to build him a shelter. And so he ended up passing the whole rainy season outdoors with no shelter, getting rained on every day. And of course, he was not able to meditate correctly because he was all the time busy shivering with cold. He was not able to become concentrated. And so then after the rainy season, he went back and the Buddha asked him, "So, how did you get on? Did you have good concentration? Did you meditate well?" And he said, "Well, actually, no, I wasn't really able to be concentrated because of this rain that was falling on me all the time and I didn't have any shelter." And the Buddha told him, "Well, how come you didn't move?" It's one thing to tolerate physical discomfort, like being outdoors in the rain for a certain amount of time. Yet still, if this situation means that we are not able to concentrate properly, not able to meditate properly, then it's perfectly correct to look to change it, while nevertheless not allowing yourself to become affected emotionally by it, to become irritated, to become depressed or something like that. So that's all at the level of contentment with a physical situation, with a material situation. But we also need a much more thorough practice in order to achieve contentment, because clearly not only our physical situation is a source of discontent, but our own mental failings, our own lack of wisdom. What prevents us from being able to be content when alone in a room with ourselves is the torment of our own mind. So we need to be able to train our mind not to be a torment to us, to be our friend instead of our enemy. So this involves practicing right actions, not allowing ourselves to do things for which we will have regret, practicing morality at the level of thoughts, words, and actions, for which it's also necessary to practice meditation to grow sati, mindfulness, in order to train our mind to go out of bad mental habits as well as wrong words and wrong actions. Finally, at the deepest level, which is also the most profound contentment, is only by removing the root cause of this discontent, which is the craving, the desire. So to do this, it is necessary to be able to see this cause for oneself, to know it as it arises, and to see how it works, to understand it. I will talk in more detail about that in particular in another video, but for the moment, that's the main points that I wanted to bring today. So the cause of discontent, the origin of discontent, is in craving. The only relief that we know from this discontent is to go and get the thing that we're craving, whatever that may be, whether that's just a change of situation, whether that's more material comfort, or whether that's something else. But this temporary relief has a big problem in that it is temporary. Whatever agreeable thing we wanted goes away, or this very thing, if we get to keep it for too long, becomes disagreeable to us. So finally, there is never any peace, never any true contentment. And the only way to find true contentment is firstly just to refuse to follow the desire, to be contented with what is necessary to live and to be having a reasonable level of comfort. Secondly, to work on oneself and practice morality in order to be content within oneself. And thirdly, at the deepest level, the final step really, is to practice to remove the source of this suffering, this discontent, this constant insatisfaction, which is the desire that arises within our own minds, to see how it arises within the mind and uproot it there.